How often do you get to have an interview with somebody who works at a spaceport? Spaceport being, of course, the same as an airport, but for rockets that go into space. Really, really thrilled to have caught up with Lauren and Anna at the Farnborough Air Show recently, and they told us all about Cornwall Spaceport. You might have heard about Cornwall in the news a couple of years ago. They had an attempt to get a rocket into space. They didn't quite make it all the way to space, but for those of you that know a little bit about that subject, getting a partial success is a big success in space development. Well, I'd like to invite you now to find out what's happening in Cornwall and what they're doing post that first rocket launch attempt. And it's a really fun interview. Hope you enjoy it too. I'm absolutely delighted, Lauren, Anna, from the spaceport, that you found time for us today. So maybe you'd just like to quickly introduce yourselves and say hello.
Yeah, of course. I'm Lauren Llewellyn. I am the Sustainable Development Coordinator of Spaceport Cornwall and Cornwall Airport Newquay. Really excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Excellent. And what about yourself, Anna? I've learned a new term. What's your job title?
Yeah, so I'm a spin term, which means I've got a space placement in industry, and essentially I've been working with Lauren on all things sustainability, but I'm a second year business student going to my final year. So yeah, looking to gain some experience, and it's been really good so far.
And you're studying in Exeter, if I remember rightly?
I'm studying with Exeter in Cornwall, so it's a bit of a weird dynamic, but it's a bit of a hidden secret, an amazing campus and a beautiful place. So.
All right. Well, you heard it first here. It sounds like that's a bit of a life hack of what you're up to there. So tell me a little bit about your placement. I mean, it must be absolutely fantastic, working together with somebody that's got so much experience on this front. But tell us just a little bit about how long it is and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so the placement's 8 weeks long. I think that's sort of typical for students. But essentially, I've been working with Lauren since Christmas because I had a sort of placement lined up beforehand. So I got my sort of foot in the door. We were working on waste management solutions. And yeah, I'm now sort of focusing on a stakeholder engagement piece. So we've been kind of looking at how we can better communicate the strategy that we're going for to stakeholders, both within the organisation, internal stakeholders, but also the community. Spaceport are really good at sort of outreach. They're very good with sort of understanding where they need to sort of communicate the gaps. But in terms of sustainability, I think there is a bit of a gap in terms of, I suppose. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Well, we're going to dive into that in just a minute. You're also, by the way, incredibly good at marketing and corporate image. I mean, this is a fantastic trade booth that we're sat on here. We're here at the Farnborough Air Show, of course. Now, Lauren, maybe you could just tell us a little bit, just to warm us up, about the relationship with Newquay Airport and, what a spaceport is. What is the scope? What is your remit? I've seen all sorts of different things in research about consultancy and all sorts of things. But tell us, how would you describe a spaceport or your spaceport, Cornwall?
So I started working with Spaceport Cornwall about 2 years ago. Also, funnily enough, on the same programme that Anna's on now, Spin, with the UK Space Agency. And I would say that a spaceport is a platform and an organisation that allows for partners, launch partners, to get satellites into space. And what we're really advocating for is responsible launch, which I think is our niche. Definitely our unique selling point. And we really want to be pushing the sustainable strategy and sustainable launch. And that's why we're working with horizontal launch partners rather than vertical.
Horizontal launch partners. Yeah. I think I can guess what that's about, but I prefer you to describe it because I actually followed that launch a couple of years back. But tell us, what's a horizontal launch partner?
Yeah, so horizontal launch is using an existing airport runway. So, for example, like we saw 18 months ago with Virgin Orbit, they used a Boeing 747 with a rocket attached under the wing. But the likes of Space Engine System, who we've got behind us on our stand, they will be using a reusable, almost like a mini plane that is hydrogen propulsion, and that will be used to get the payloads into space.
So that's really amazing. So we're talking about hydrogen propulsion, so it's a sustainable fuel to get rockets into space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is really, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? But
Absolutely.
honestly, when we talk about like responsible space travel, is it not a little bit like responsible drinking? I mean, it would be better if we just didn't do it. Is there any real use apart from, maybe, Netflix and good TV shows,
Yeah.
but is there any real use of space? Is there anything that humankind benefits from in space, or is it just about billionaires sending rockets up to space to show off that their billionaire rocket's better than the last guy's?
Of course, and this is a very common misconception. And I think that we are here to educate people, and we really want to change this narrative. 50% of all of our environmental data that we collect from Earth comes from Earth observation satellites. And these Earth observation satellites only have one way of getting into space, and that's through launch. So we obviously know that these satellites are important, and we know that they need to be in space, but what we need to focus on is changing the way that they get there. And that's why we are advocating for responsible launch at Spaceport Cornwall.
All right, well, that's absolutely excellent. I mean, you just don't think about these things, do you? How many things depend on space at the moment? How much of our life would crash down if we didn't have those satellites? Obviously, we could live without them before they were up there, before Sputnik appeared on the scene. But if we think about, the way we live today, I mean, there's so much that depends on what's going on up there, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And do we still need more satellites up in space? I know they've got quite a long, lifespan and everything, but do we need to send anything else up there?
Yeah, I definitely think that things are changing. Technology is changing. We are so much more focused on the environment now. So the kinds of satellites that we need to change. And that's why we're continuing to send satellites into space. I don't know if you've got anything to say.
I think, like Lauren said, it's the fact that what was currently being done before doesn't fit the world that we live in today, and therefore, whilst there are already thousands of satellites in the sort of orbit, it's not enough to cater towards the growing technology, and therefore, if we are able to make them more sustainable as the technology grows alongside, then it's almost like winning both sides of the argument, because yes, it's putting emissions, yes, it's that, but it's also going towards a good cause. So it's not what it used to be anymore, and that's why there needs to be more innovation in the sector.
And speaking of like thousands of satellites, like this is something as well that we have a really keen interest in doing a lot of R&D into. We have a new building at Spaceport Cornwall. It's called the Space Systems Operations Facility. And we have a number of different space enterprises and businesses that work there. And we really want to get a company who's interested in space debris. It's clearly a problem, and it can cause serious incidents in space, knocking satellites out of the sky, causing problems with the International Space Station. So for us to partner with a company who's keen, like we are, about sustainable space, to clear up that debris so that we can put new, effective satellites into space would be amazing for us, and it's definitely where we want to go.
Excellent. And I've also seen there's quite a lot of stuff about education on your website as well, right? If you go there, you've got an education piece for the local community, or is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. I mean, Fritha, she works all week with schools during term time and during the academic year. She's also just recently done a sort of week-long industrial experience opportunity for students aged 15 to 19, I believe.
Yeah.
And that way, students like myself are getting experience even before they've gone to university, even before they're thinking about jobs. And it's a great way, especially in Cornwall, where there isn't a lot of opportunity for high-skilled, sort of high-paid jobs, to really sort of engage with the community and understand that you don't have to leave Cornwall to get a good job.
Yeah.
There is plenty around you. We all love Cornwall for the amazing beauty that we have down there, but sometimes the job sector's overlooked a little bit. So
I mean, Cornwall really is a very beautiful place, and I live in quite a beautiful place as well, on a lake between Germany and Switzerland. But we were in Cornwall for a wedding a couple of years back. It is paradise down there. It really is, isn't it? So having those sort of opportunities without having to leave paradise, I mean, it's like eating the apple without leaving Eden, isn't it? It's fantastic. Yeah.
And this is like, I feel like the whole ethos around Cornwall as well is very centered around sustainability. And that's why we are like, it's so important at our core, at our heart, that we continue that. And I think the stakeholder engagement piece that we've been working on together is very much focused on harnessing that kind of sustainable energy that Cornwall and the businesses in Cornwall have, and trying to not get them on side, but get them to understand that we care as much as they do, and try and educate them into that we are doing this for the benefit of Earth. help us to do it in a better way.
A lot of untapped potential for sure. I mean, the University of Exeter are leading in environmental policy, and they're, I'm at the institution, I'm studying with them, and it's all very much interrelated. They have modules to do with space, and they've collaborated with things like Greenhush. It's very much like the place to be, and cool.
This is the only and a super short break in this podcast to say a thank you to our sponsors, which is my company, Progress Factors. You can find us on LinkedIn on the Progress Factors page or my own personal page, Nick Stamforth. If you'd like to reach out and speak to us, maybe you'd like to become a sponsor of this podcast series. Maybe you've got a great story you'd like to tell us about how you're combining doing the right thing with earning more money and how you're helping to save the planet and create better places for people to work. We'd love to hear from you to create another podcast. And finally, it might also be that you just like some of our services to help you accelerate your own agenda and get to those goals and become more the company that you describe on your website in a quicker, easier and more fun way. We'd love to hear from you. But let's get back to the podcast. Tell me, you're studying business and you have modules on space business. Is that correct? Did I understand?
So Exeter Business School are great. They have a lot of interdisciplinary modules, one of which I think recently was the Economy of Space module, which I think sort of is all about understanding where we can go in the future with this, but also, like I said, collaborating with things like Greenhush, a great opportunity to actually apply what you're learning, which is very rare and I think often overlooked in business schools for sure. Exeter are very much chopping and changing what they do, but a lot of it is on cutting edge policy and theories and concepts and ideas.
Absolutely.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I studied many years ago at Heriot Watt in Edinburgh, and we were proud that we had a brewing study. It's the only one in Britain, but it sounds like you've really topped that one. Fair. So that's really good. And for yourself, do you think this is just something you're doing for a summer because it's interesting, or is this you in it for the career? Have you been bitten by the space bug?
I think so. I mean, to be honest, I went in just wanting to apply skills. I've done a lot of different internships of lots of different varying industries and things, but I never did really see myself getting into something like this. But having met Lauren and having understood that this is actually where you want to be if you want to work in sustainability, because as Lauren said earlier, if you're going to make change for good, you want to do it in an industry that is maybe inherently not good, because that way there is actually room for growth. There isn't just the same, always been good, always will be good.
Born green, stay green.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think seeing myself with that opportunity to perhaps really make some sort of impact has definitely inspired me to keep going and perhaps pursue what I'm doing at the moment and see where it takes me. I mean, absolutely. I'd be happy to stay in Cornwall, but we'll see.
Well, it was interesting. We just had another podcast interview recently with a company called Z2O, like H2O, but Z2O, and really fascinating biological technology that they have there with bacterias. And what they can actually do is they can make the extraction of oil out of oil fields way more efficient. So you get a lot more oil out of an oil field. Now, it sounds like, oh my God, this is terrible, we shouldn't do this. But if we're going to use oil, then it's a lot better to be more efficient with one oil field than open up a new one. On top of that, they can use the same technology to clean up oil spills all over the world. And in the podcast, Marcos, the guy that founded it or that bought it, he tells us all about it. And that's exactly the sort of thing that we're interested at Progress Factors as well, is helping companies to have a positive impact and make more money out of doing the right thing.
We're going through a rebrand at the moment, and one of our main hashtags has been progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
We are massively against greenwashing, but we're also against green hushing. If someone is trying their best and they're showing with data-led facts that we are really trying to make this as sustainable as we can, we shouldn't be put down for that. Yeah. I understand the criticism. We're not naive in the fact that the industry we're working in has a huge carbon impact. But why should that stop us from trying to make it better? The constant green hushing can be really disheartening sometimes, because we are really trying behind closed doors. It's not easy to make this a sustainable environment, but we are trying, and I think that's what matters.
I think the all or nothing mentality has been really detrimental to anyone trying to work in sustainability. I know as a student, we are hugely pushed to go into that, but then you actually get in these organizations, you realize there's so many barriers in place, there's so many sort of criticisms that actually your sort of passion for the subject and the passion for the change you want to make is completely taken away from you because you realize, it's something we need to tackle, but it's something no one's willing to tackle. And you have to really understand that actually, like Lauren said, progress does make a difference. It's not about changing things overnight. It's obviously taking us years to get to the point where we need to make change. And therefore, it's going to take a bit of time to get back to where we need to be.
Absolutely.
In the future.
Well, I've got a feeling that those are going to be sound bites that come on our website, because that's exactly what this podcast is all about. This is exactly what we're passionate about doing at Progress Factors.
Yeah.
We help companies to accelerate their change. We help people to deliver the dreams and deliver the goals in a profitable way. So do the right thing. And we always say, out of good intentions, great results.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you just said it in way better words. It's about actually, let's not troll everyone. And I think it's nice to see the world's getting beyond generation troll, because that's where it stopped, really. I went to see Sting before we flew over here this week. He was playing at a local castle. Absolutely wonderful show, and he played, his famous song Fragile. Now, I heard that when I was 15, and Sting had very long hair, and he'd just come back from South America, and he was talking about the rainforests and problems of carbon impact back in the 80s. So it's not like we just found out, but it feels like the last 20 years we've done anything we can to slow down progress here. So.
And it's almost like people are then sort of deterred because if the change is an instant, it's not attractive, it's not something you want to Lauren is every day making small implements, and no one really sees the big picture. They don't see it as like, wow, we've just done all this. It's really it's small percentages that
we're almost scared to share data with people, even though it's been verified, even though it's been looked at by Exeter, it's been verified through outsources. We're still scared to share that data because of the trolling, because of the negative impact that it might have online. And do you know what? Since I started with the airport in November. The amount of small changes that we've made that have had a huge decrease in our carbon impact, I'm scared to share that because it's things like lighting and runway lighting, and I don't think people would be interested in that. But we need to get rid of that stigma because it's still so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And can you tell us some more about the fascinating things? Like I said, I've done some research before the podcast and seen all the stuff that you've put out there in the publicity, but there's loads of really great, happy stories, good stories that you can share with us.
Yeah, we've actually got a horticulturist on site, and he's created a polytunnel. So he has planted loads of fruit and veg, and is trying to encourage staff to come and use it as a place to grow fruit and vegetables. And he's developing the site, he's planting wildflowers. We are an airport, we can't plant loads of trees, we can't do all of these things, but what we can do in the areas away from the runway is increase biodiversity, and not just increasing it, is constantly looking at it and seeing what else we can do with it to maintain it. I think that's an amazing story to tell. We've seen deer outside of the airport recently, and little ducks, and these amazing birds that keep coming to old parts of the airfield. I think that's a good news story because it shows that there's still wildlife, especially in Cornwall. I think other good news stories is that we've developed LED lighting onto our runways. It's a very old site. It's an old RAF base. So it's taken time to get all of these old institutionalized things changed into a new, more sustainable thing. But it's baby steps, it's progress, and we should be shouting about it, and it feels good to.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm glad that you are today. And is that where Matt Damon filmed The Martian, by the way, with vegetables? Okay, all right.
Potatoes only.
Sorry, potatoes
only.
Okay. No, cool. So that's really good. And are you finding that local communities interacting, and also local business? What about the collaboration?
Yeah, I've definitely seen it more recently. Local hotels are really keen to get involved with us. We're going to be releasing some data soon that shows that the ATC flight that we use from Newquay to Manchester is actually more carbon friendly than it is to get on a train.
Really?
And we're really excited to release that data. It feels really good to talk about it. And yeah, local hotels are really keen to jump on that and try and get more people down there without that almost, guilty conscience of getting on a flight. Well, here's the data that shows that you're actually doing something better because of the ATC technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the new technologies here at this trade fair, you can really see the difference. And I had quite a few funny stories. Seen people, I just nearly mentioned a name. I won't mention a name, but somebody who's got a lot of experience in aviation. And we met up around the Friedrichshafen Fair, which is actually quite close to where I live. And I think she'd flown into Paris. And of course, with Paris, there's a ban in France to fly within certain time periods. So if it's less than 2 hours, I think it is, you're not allowed to do short haul flights. And of course, she had to come with the train. And just right now, as you might have seen with the Euros, the German train system is not where it should be. And there's a lot of inefficiency in that.
In Cornwall is that the diesel trains are so inefficient, constantly having to stop. The load factor is so low, people aren't using it. When you're getting on an ATC flight and the load factor is full, it is more environmentally friendly to get on that flight rather than getting on these old diesel trains that don't have enough capacity of people.
It really is about breaking down misconceptions and barriers, because as soon as you do that, you open up multiple opportunities for just changing the way things are done and not just
Look
being
at the
visual.
data,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I've heard that you've also met somebody very famous as well. So you've got an advocate when you set up. Tell us a little bit about Tim Peake.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so in the lead up to our first launch, Tim Peake was a massive help to us in our launch campaign. He was hugely engaged in all of the children across Cornwall. Leading up to the launch campaign, we actually engaged with every single child in secondaries and primary schools in the whole of Cornwall, which is incredible. We did a live broadcast of launch with Tim Peake and loads of kids across. We had over 5,000 people on that live stream. And I think that just goes to show how excited people really were about it.
Yeah, new opportunities for Cornwall as well. Bringing in excitement like that does great wonders for the community. Just understanding that you are in a place, you're born and bred in a place where there is amazing things going on, and it isn't just about finding jobs elsewhere and finding opportunity elsewhere.
And so what are the next steps from here then? If we're rounding things off, where do we go from here? What can we expect, from Spaceport Cornwall? What can we expect for the region? What's your dream? I guess you're interacting as well with other space companies, not just local hotels, but I guess you're also interacting with other specialists from the industry. Or?
Yeah, definitely. As you can see on our stand, we've got Greenhush, we've got the drone hub, we've got Space Engine Systems behind us and the Cornwall Space Cluster. And I think that really goes to show how much is going on in Cornwall. And I think Spaceport Cornwall really want to continue that growth of the sector. We've definitely got other things that we're venturing out into. We've signed an MOU with Pradanik Airport, which is an old military base, RAF a runway, where we're going to be able to test drones, partner with different companies that are going to be testing drones. And it's just so exciting to see that we're not just talking about spaceflight anymore. But yeah, it's going amazing, and we can't wait to do it in the most sustainable way possible.
Excellent. So if there's a message out there, if there's companies out there and they're wondering about whether they should get in touch with you guys, when do they know that they should call you up? When do they know, and how should they call you up? Are you a LinkedIn group? Are you Facebookers? Yeah. Do you prefer a WhatsApp message?
Yeah, we're definitely active on LinkedIn. So Russ Hulbert is our head of engagement. He's super active on LinkedIn. We do have a website that's currently being updated at the moment, just to highlight all of the stuff that's changed since launch. But yeah, we're all really active on social media, so please reach out about any questions or anything that you might want to ask us.
Anything to add?
No, not really. But yeah, great to speak to you, and thank you for the opportunity as well.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. One last question. When are we next going to see a launch attempt? Do we have a set date yet, or is it a secret, or can you tell us?
We're hoping in the next 2 to 3 years. It would be great if all of the testing with Space Engine Systems goes well and we can see a horizontal launch in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, that would be absolutely wonderful. I was so happy for you guys. I know it wasn't quite the result you were looking for, but like with many things in progress, just because something doesn't go perfectly right the first time, it's not a reason to go backwards.
Absolutely.
And so you've learned so much, you've achieved so much already. Yeah. And, I really thank you. It's been a fascinating interview. You guys are absolute natural talents. And good luck with everything else you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right then. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So I do hope you enjoyed listening to that podcast as much as I enjoyed actually interviewing the people that we spoke to today. As we mentioned halfway through the film, if you'd like us to support you and accelerate your own sustainability agenda, or if you'd maybe like to sponsor this podcast, or if you just got something you'd like to chat to us about, which maybe could become the next podcast, then please do go over to either our LinkedIn profile. You can find us at Progress Factors, or my own LinkedIn profile is Nick Stanforth. Or you could also just go over old school to our website, which is www.progressfactors.com. Thanks for listening, and tune in for the next podcast as they keep being released.